Yeah, so do you want to talk a little bit about Garrett?
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. And
I think when you see your sibling die when you're young, you kind of just realize that you can die, and I think you realize that everyone can die around you. So, and I think when you're a kid, normally you don't really have that realization.
And part of the process of, of healing is sitting with it. And I had never even considered that. Like, it felt like, okay, well, you just can't, what are you gonna do, sit here and cry the rest of your life? I didn't see the value in it. But now I recognize like that you have to feel those emotions, and you have to let them run their course.
You don't have to do anything perfectly. Like, you're not going to. Like, I think feeling awkward about it and being like, I don't know what to say is like a big part. And even like someone like me who like, I've known since a young age that it's important to reach out and to show up for people in those times, but I still feel uncomfortable when I do, depending on the person, and even when it's somebody I'm close to. Like, it's hard. It's really hard to sit with someone while they're in that much pain. It's hard to hold that space, right? It's not necessarily comfortable, but it's meaningful.
My hopes are in sharing all of this, it gives people more understanding, and people who have been through something similar, don't feel as alone, and can, it finds some I don't know, some strength or just some sense of connection or something in me sharing my story. Like
Welcome back, everybody, to the Authenticity Podcast, where we are chasing authentic conversations on meaningful topics. My name is Olivia Walker.
I'm Janae Croc.
And we are shooting at a Crocs gym in Nova, Michigan.
Yeah, so today's episode, even though it's a very serious and very heavy topic, you may hear some background noise because as Olivia just mentioned, we're shooting out of my gym. This, unfortunately, tends to be a very busy time, and so you may hear people in the background smoking and joking, and a
lot of weights clanging.
Yeah, weights clanging and some other noise, but hopefully that'll be kept to a minimum. But yeah, so if you hear that, it's that's why. Then we're shooting from my gym, and it's quite busy right now. So to get into this, today's episode is about grief. And unfortunately for us, this is something Olivia and I both have a lot of personal experience with. And, this is going to be a very, like I said, heavy episode. And I just want to let anyone know who might be really sensitive to this topic that we're going to be very open, honest, and it's going to be very raw. And I'm going to do my best to keep things together. But I'm not going to lie either, and that's probably not going to happen. I will get through it, but it's definitely going to be difficult for me to talk about. And so just want everybody to know that up front. And if that's something that, you think might be difficult for you to listen to, then, know that going in, and, just want to give you a heads up.
Yeah. So like Janae said, the episode is about grief, and we're going to talk about our own experiences with it, things that, we found I don't know if helped is the right word, but things that have helped us move through it. We just wanted to do this. Like, another part of that is just that, we both experienced it, and we know that there's not much that you can do, but that sharing experiences and stories can sometimes help people feel less alone with it. So that was another sort of motivator behind sharing.
Yeah, and another big reason that I thought of to do this is that grief is such a difficult thing to talk about. And I know for me, before I experienced it personally, like, I had no idea like how to deal with it, and we're going to talk about like how, you might be able to approach it with if someone close to you experiences grief, and it's a very difficult thing to, and unfortunately I was the type of person who, thinking that I didn't know what to say and was afraid to say the wrong thing, I wouldn't say anything at all. And I definitely wouldn't recommend that now, having been through, some really difficult things. So I think that's another important reason to do this, because it's a very difficult topic to talk about, but I think a lot of people have questions.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think this is important to do, and that's why we're, going to talk about this, and even though it's going to be so challenging for us.
Yeah, I mean...
Or for me, at least.
Yeah, I think
definitely more for me than you.
Yeah, like yeah, I think grief is a little bit, it's part of my line of work as a firefighter. Like we see it a lot. I'm a witness to a lot of other people's grief. You know, and I've experienced my own. And should we just get into our own stories now, or?
Yeah. So let's, yeah. But I think that's important too. You do work in a field that where you see a lot of this, and you've witnessed a lot of like really, really, you know, horrible things. And so you have a lot of experience with it from many different angles. And, you know, not only have you been through it yourself, you know, you see other people going through it all the time. But yeah, so without further ado, we're going to share our stories, and you know, Olivia, we'll let you start first, and then I'll share mine, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Okay. So my first, I guess, first encounter with grief, and so I guess maybe like one of the major losses in my life was I lost my brother when I was 7 or 8 years old, and that was, I think that sort of. Yeah, it really shaped my relationship with grief throughout my life. So basically what happened with him was he was born with a disease called mitochondrial cytopathy. And I don't know if as a pharmacist, you might have a better idea of what that even is than me, to be honest. But obviously mitochondria are all over your body. And so his whole body was affected in different ways. Like the doctors thought he was, at first, I think they just said, he's not going to be able to walk. And so my parents were like, oh, that's rough. But then it was like, he's not gonna be able to see, and it turned into other things. So he never really, he never walked. He never spoke. He could see, I think, shapes and colors, but not like his eyes were sort of, they would flick back and forth a lot. He didn't develop the way the normal person would. He looked a little different. He had like a bigger head, and he couldn't swallow, so he ate through a G tube. He was on tons of different medications. I know a lot of them were painkillers, like morphine, like things like that all the time. So his quality of life was not super great.
Yeah. Well, didn't you say, I remember we've talked about this previously.
Yeah.
And I mean, didn't you say like he outlived his life expectancy?
He did by a lot. So he died when he was 3.5, and he, I don't remember the exact age, but I don't think the doctors thought he was going to live over a year. So, so he did live a lot longer than expected. And, you know, like, it's one of those things, like whether that's a good thing or not, for his own suffering. Like, I know there was something my mom always said too, like she was like, because he could smile. So that was kind of a neat thing. So it was like, you know, even though he's going through all that stuff, like he could still smile. And she always brought that up. But yeah, like, and I guess I just tell the story of the night he died, I guess is kind of like, I don't know. I have memories of that. Obviously I was pretty young, but I do have pretty vivid memories of that. So basically that night, I think they knew he was dying and his organs were shutting down. And, I think at the time, the doctors, I believe, were trying to help him, or the one doctor that was working with us was trying to help him end his suffering early, because he was just struggling, and you're already crying. I don't remember the details of this. My guess is it was like an opioid or something that they were trying to
I can't imagine how difficult that was for your parents.
Yeah, so I know they were trying to, help him end his suffering, and then I think that when my mom saw him trying to catch his breath or like waiting long time between breaths, I think that because I know why that stopped, and like, and again, I actually don't ultimately know if that continued on after or not, to be honest, because I was so young when this happened.
Yeah, and this is how you remember things, right?
Exactly.
Like
Honestly, it could be a little bit different
yeah.
as I was a kid. This is just my own memory. But I do. So what I remember about that night is I remember going to bed, and I remember thinking, okay, like my brother didn't die tonight. I remember being like, okay, like things are going to be okay. And I don't know if I thought like he just wasn't like good. And also, sorry, if seems like I have an inappropriate amount of like detachment from it, it's just because it's been like, I'm 30 and this happened when I was 7 or 8. So there's been a lot of processing a long time between these things. Like obviously Janae is crying, but she's a lot closer to a lot of the grief she's experienced in her life, and a lot of the major grief, I should say. I don't know if you're just listening to this, obviously people aren't going to be looking at you, but yeah. So, I remember going to bed thinking like, okay, like he's not dead. Like this is good. And then I just remember then I woke up to like screams and crying, and I went in and I saw him like, lifeless or whatever in my mom's arms, and just her sobbing, crying, that kind of thing. Like I guess that's the experience of that night.
Did you want to? Do you want to talk about now, or we can get into this a little bit later, about some other losses you've had or things you were close to?
Like I guess, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I've obviously had quite a few different experiences with grief in my life that are like, regular griefs. Like, I don't know if regular is the right way to put it. Like, I just think that there's a difference between untimely deaths and like losing my grandparents. I found really difficult in some ways. Like my grandfather had cancer when I was 18, and then we were spending a lot of time with him during that time. And then my grandma died like a year or two ago. But those things, those are to me a normal order of things. Yeah, so it's a bit of a different grief. It's still there, but it's just you don't feel as confused and like, I don't know, it's just a different, like you still feel like you miss the person, but it's obviously more of like and I know you said you felt that same way when your dad passed, right?
Yeah,
and
like my dad had, for those who aren't familiar, which probably is just about everybody. My dad had, was a lifelong smoker, started in his early teens, and he was the type of person who chain smoked. Like literally, if you were ever around my dad, there was a cigarette always lit. Like one went out, he lit the next one. And so he died at 70, and but he had emphysema, COPD, and lung cancer. And the cancer was progressing rapidly, but the COPD was so bad that it killed him first.
Right.
But it's very different when you know it's coming, and like you said, there's kind of, you feel like there's a natural order of things, right? Like parents die before their children, and grandparents, that's like expected. So it's not that it's not sad.
It is absolutely,
but there's definitely a different feeling, like you said. Not only when it's a younger person, but also when it's unexpected. Yeah,
and you don't have those opportunities to say the things you want or just to see the process of death carried out. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, the other person I was going to talk about is I lost a close friend of mine this year, and he was like sort of a father figure to me, and I had worked for him since I was like 14, 15, and he helped me get on the fire department, and he was on the fire department as well, and he completely died out of the blue, just had a heart attack driving his truck and crashed his truck, and or a heart attack, some sort of medical, like I think it was something with his heart. I don't know the actual specific details. But yeah, and that one was a really difficult one for me as well. I think just, again, like he was in his 50s, and it was just untimely and a really difficult one to swallow. So, I mean, and again, there's other times in my life I've lost people too, but that one's just the most recent one I've been dealing with. And I
think there's definitely a different element when it's unexpected. It's different.
Like, I didn't even get to have a conversation with him or anything. I didn't know what he would want after he died, like how I could help his family, how I could it felt like such a weird thing. Like there were so many unfinished conversations, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. And the last time I was actually supposed to see him was I was supposed to go to his mom's funeral. His mom died about a month before him, and I bailed because I wasn't feeling well that morning. And it was just one of those things like, I regret anyways, because it's just like,
but there's no way to know.
Of course, but I'm like, and I should have just showed up late. I knew I was going to be 20 or 30 minutes late because I've been feeling sick and whatever. And then I just was like, I can't show up late. But in hindsight,
no, but I understand that, like something like a funeral, it's not something you
it was a celebration of life too. So I think it would have actually been fine. I just, for some reason in my head, and anyway, so there's things like that. And like, I would have loved to have that just any kind of conversation with him about the fact that he was going to die. I think that would have been helpful, like, and I'm sure everybody wishes that with the people that they lose in an untimely way. So, but yeah, that's like the kind of gist of the story with my brother. And I'm
gonna do my best to get through this, and I will. But it's gonna be a little bit tough. But I want to share like what happened, and so unfortunately, probably because me being somewhat of a public figure, and there were rumors and a lot of inaccurate stuff said. I saw things posted on the internet. You told me about some of the comments you had saw, And yeah, people, I don't understand this.
I really
people
don't understand.
Can be horrible. But there were people posting on the internet that he died from a COVID vaccine. Well, that was true. Garrett was not vaccinated. He didn't have any vaccine, so it definitely wasn't that. And then there were some other people. This is shows the true ignorance and how mean people can be sometimes. But some people had posted about how he killed himself because of me being trans, which is just beyond crappy. And it's one of those things that's obviously ingrained in my memory, and I'll never forget every little detail. And so what happened was Garrett lived with me at the time. He was 22. And so the funny thing is Garrett was someone who, when he was working, he was an iron worker, and he was very disciplined about what time he went to bed, because he got up at 4:30 every morning.
Yeah.
So that was his routine. He got up at 4:30 in the morning to get ready for work, and Garrett was notorious for sleeping through his alarms.
Yeah.
This kid could. Actually, it was.
You called him the Slump King, didn't you guys?
Yeah, we called him the Slump King, because he would literally just slump over and go to sleep anywhere. And I have so many photos of him sleeping on the carpet in the living room, in the back seat of his own car. One time, he literally fell asleep. Was coming he had gone home for the weekend back to Lansing, where they grew up at, to see his brothers and some of his friends, which he frequently did. On the weekends, he often went back to Lansing and stayed at his mom's house and spent time with his brothers and his friends. And then he would come back and spend the entire week with me. And then, but yeah, he, the one time he fell asleep in the backseat of his car getting stuff ready to come back to my house. He would literally just,
Really?
it's like he had narcolepsy or something, but he didn't. But yeah, he would come home from work as an iron worker and not even sometimes take off his boots, or sometimes just take off his boots, plop down on the carpet right in front of the front door, and sleep for 2 hours. And
that's crazy. I wish.
Yeah, the kid could sleep like a rock. And so I have photos of him sleeping in all these goofy places and on the floor next to his bed. Dude, what are you doing? And but yeah, so we always called him the Slump King, because he would just slump over and go to sleep. And so anyway, that was an unusual night, because he'd come home on Sunday night, and then he would usually get his things ready for work in the morning. He was very organized. If you looked at Garrett's closet, all his clothes were organized, his things were organized, and so he would get everything ready the night before. And he got home later than he wanted to, and he had to do some grocery shopping and stuff. And he had gone to Meijer and bought a bunch of things. He was all excited about this new pellet rifle that he bought, and was telling me all about it. And so usually, like I said, he clockwork, he would go to bed at 10 p.m. And but this night, he got home late, and then we just started talking. And we stayed up till 1:30 in the morning talking. And I remember thinking in the back of my mind, how I was surprised that he wasn't I got to get to bed right now, because that's just how he was. And he was such a big deal to him. He would say all the time, hey, sorry, got to go to bed.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason this night, so it was really nice. We got to have that conversation. And I mean, we talked every single night. We always would have dinner together in the living room and watch Peaky Blinders or Rick and Morty. And sorry. And but yeah, so we would talk every night. But that night, for whatever reason, he stayed up extra late, and we talked till 1:30 in the morning, and then I was falling asleep on the couch, and so I fell asleep on the couch around 1:30, And then he's like, well, I'm heading up to bed. But then he's like, well, I'm going to call Jasmine real quick, which is a girl he had been dating and been his girlfriend, but they were kind of on again, off again a little bit. And she was living out west. She had taken a job at like a resort or something out west for the summer. And so, the time zone was a couple hours behind us. And so he called her and talked to her and that, and then I fell asleep all the same time. Well, then, I don't think he actually went to sleep that night. Like he had trouble, like I said, for someone we called the Slump King, sometimes too, like, so Garrett was bipolar and I think he was kind of entering a manic phase. And and so because he was like really high energy that night.
Right.
And I kind of recognized that. And so I think he was having, like just unwinding, like, having trouble winding down to go to bed. And so I suspect that he never actually went to bed that night. And then, because I woke up at 4:20 in the morning and then I went upstairs to go to my bed, and I still had a couple more hours before I had to be up. And the shower was running in the upstairs bathroom that Garrett used, and he would do that. He would turn the shower on, and because I would always hear him getting ready in the morning, and frequently, like I said, because he would sleep through alarms and stuff, it was very not uncommon for me to wake up when his alarm went off and go in there and then wake him up and make sure that he was getting up and getting ready for work, because the kid would sleep through anything. And so anyway, so it was 4:20, and I remember thinking, well, that's kind of odd because he gets up at 4:30, like it was like clockwork every day. So then it made me think, like, gosh, I wonder if he never did go to sleep. But the shower was running, and I noticed there was some steam coming out of the bathroom, and then I could see the door to his bedroom was right across from mine, and I could see that the light was on, and I knew he was in there, and I tell he's getting ready to hop in the shower, and I had to use the bathroom, and I recognized, okay, like he's 10 minutes earlier than usual, so he's got a little bit of time. And so I needed to use the restroom before I went back to sleep. So I'm going to do that. And then I was kind of listening to like hear him climb in the shower, because it would be uncommon for Garrett to get up, do that, and then fall back to sleep.
Yeah.
So then like I could hear the shower running and could tell he hadn't gotten in yet, and like 10, 15 minutes go by, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go check on him. And I'm guessing he probably fell back asleep. And so then I go to his door and I knock, and he doesn't answer. And I'm like, I'm thinking, oh, he's asleep. And then so I say, Garrett, a few times, louder and louder and louder. And by the third or fourth time, I said it pretty loud. And that's when, all of a sudden I started to be like, think something might be wrong. So I opened the door, and Garrett was face down on the bed. And he had his phone in his hand, in his left hand. Garrett was left-handed, and it looked like he'd fallen back to sleep. And he was obviously getting ready to get in the shower. He didn't have any clothes on, and but he was face down, looked like he was sleeping. And then as I came through the door and went towards the bed, like I'm yelling louder and louder, and he's not responding. And so I ran and grabbed him and turned him over. And that's, that's like, I knew something was wrong. And I remember exactly how it felt. Like he was just completely limp. And I picked him up, and at this point I'm yelling his name really loud, and I slapped him like kind of hard across the face, and Garrett, and he was just limp, and that's when I realized something's wrong, and I slapped him a couple times, and I just remember his body felt so heavy, like when someone's unconscious like that, it's just dead weight, right? It's different. And so I sprinted back in my room and grabbed my phone and called 911. And I didn't know for sure what happened, but but I suspected that it could be Garrett, like he was kind of self-medicating at times with being bipolar and stuff like that. And I knew he would take Xanax and some other things that help calm him down. And so, one of the first things that shot through my mind was, possible drug overdose. And, and it was kind of weird because it was like it was 4:20 in the morning, or by this point, probably like 4:40. So, someone's not going to take a bunch of stuff right before they go to work. But at the same time, if he's entering a manic phase and wants to feel more calm. But anyway, so I suspect that I call 911. I'm like, my son's unresponsive, and I found him like this, and I was checking for a pulse and breathing, and I couldn't find either, and then I'm like, am I just like, and it's weird, like I've only had this happen twice in my life, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes like really stressful situations, you kind of go like autopilot.
Yeah, 100%.
And and for me, the weird thing is I've been in a lot of like almost, life and death situations with near car crashes and other things. And typically I always just, react, and a lot of times, sometimes things will happen so fast, but I don't even ever get scared or anything. But yeah, my brain, I think just like how overwhelming everything was is I just, and I reacted appropriately, but I went into the kind of this autopilot mode, and, I'm trying to check for a pulse, and then the person on the phone is, telling me to start CPR and stuff. And so like I take him off the bed, lay him on the floor, and, fortunately I know how to do that. And, so I'm giving him CPR, and, I could feel his ribs breaking.
Yeah. And that does happen with like every person that you just CPR, just so you know, like that's supposed to happen.
I knew that. Yeah, because I had done like a lot of CPR courses between, we took those things in high school and then the Marine Corps and stuff like that. And I took some special training and stuff. So I knew enough about CPR, know what to expect. And obviously the first time I actually did it. And, but yeah, but, and then so like it just felt like forever, right, for the ambulance and police to get there. Even though it was probably only a few minutes. But also like me, this wasn't the first time in my life I had seen someone die. And when the first job I worked in the hospital, it was a small hospital as a pharmacist, and we responded all the codes. So I had seen that people coded a lot. And I also recognize, it's not like TV. A lot of times when someone's already coded when they come in, them coming back is rare. Yeah. And so all these things are, I know these things, and this is all going through my mind, and just waiting for them. So finally, then I, out his window, I could see a police car in the parking lot, and I think they were having a hard time figuring out which house was mine. And so I sprinted downstairs and opened the door and yelled at them, here, whatever. And then the ambulance showed up shortly afterwards. But I did CPR until they got there. And it was just, some chaos and I think for probably the next hour, I was in a fog, reacting and answering their questions, and they're asking things but yeah, they did CPR on him for quite a while and tried everything. And I told them, it could be, some type of overdose. And I said, if there was, it would most likely be either a benzo, and like Xanax, the class drug Xanax is, obviously I'm a pharmacist, so a benzo or an opiate, would be also possible. But I didn't expect that. But then again, nowadays with fentanyl and everything, and then I've never really talked about this publicly before or anything, but I think to, quell rumors and stuff like that. And, it took a couple months for us to get the results from the autopsy and everything, and that took a lot longer than I expected. But it turned out the Xanax he took was laced with fentanyl, and that's what killed him. And I suspected it was something like that, but didn't know. But yeah, then it's just such a weird experience, right? Because like then they keep trying and they're like trying to get me to leave the room or whatever, and I did temporarily, but I would kind of poke back. But I knew at this point, like I remember thinking when I grabbed him and picked him up off the bed, and like as limp as he was, and when I couldn't find a pulse, he wasn't breathing. I knew that like the time was, you don't have much time once that's breathing and the heart stop, and so it's hard not to think back and think like, what if I'd gone to his room first instead of going to the bathroom? And realistically, I know that there was no way for me to know that, and it may have been too late already. Who knows? But and then and like I said, for Garrett to go like start to shower and fall back to sleep, they're all very normal things.
Yeah.
So there was no way for me to, and I don't feel like guilty about that, but you can't do what ifs, but that does cross my mind. Like, gosh, what if I had, said something first?
Like you can't help but want to change the situation. Of course. Right? Yeah.
And, but yeah, then just like, before the coroner came and got him and, just holding him for the last time. And, I just didn't want to let go, And
yeah, it's like an impossible thing.
Yeah, it's just like, and I've never really told this whole thing to anybody. But like I said, it's, and I'm sure some people are wondering like, why am I sharing all this? But I just like I said, I just want to be open and honest and help people to understand like how an event like this affects you, and how traumatic it is.
You're probably not the only person that's gone through it, right? And like, I think there's going to be people that can relate and feel less alone in that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And because this is such a hard thing to talk about, right? And I think so many people I know before this happened to me, like I didn't, there's no way for me to understand, right? Unless I'd been through it. But I was so like afraid to talk to people because I had no idea of like what it was like or how it affected them. So I guess my hopes are in sharing all of this, it gives people more understanding, and people who have been through something similar, don't feel as alone and can, find some I don't know, some strength or just some sense of connection or something in me sharing my story. But yeah, it'll be 3 years on August 1st, and his birthday was just a couple weeks ago, May 15th. And it hasn't gotten any easier. But yeah, so that's essentially what happened. And it's, for me, like the funny thing is I would say, and knowing me and people who do know me, I'm someone who probably deals with adversity a lot better than most.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, like you were back at, you were competing a couple weeks after this happened, and it's not that I think you know what it is like you're still grieving just as much. It's just that you're not stopping your regular things for it, if that makes sense. Or not.
Just everybody handles stuff differently. For me, like I took 1 week off training. But like for me, sitting home alone, typically like if I'm dealing with something that's difficult, I do want some time alone. But not a lot of time.
Right.
And like being home alone and being isolated, like I needed that initially. But it wasn't good to do for a long period of time. Not for me. Everybody's different. But, so, I went back to training and stuff, jiu-jitsu, and I was, back at work, and And I have some really good friends like that were there for me that, came over right away. And I spent that day we spent with my other sons and, Garrett's mom and stepdad. We all got together and supported each other through that day. And the thing is too, it's like, my sons too, like, so immediately after all this happens, then I'm like, I've got to call them, right? Like that's the first thing I need to do.
Honestly, that probably was like such a, because you're just gonna crush them, right?
Yeah, but I knew I couldn't wait, and and then I also wanted to catch them all together before like the boys left for work, and I knew they, it was like about 6 a.m. and I knew they'd be leaving for work shortly, and so I called, and Logan, I think I called Logan's phone because Logan's the most reliable. And
I feel like Logan would be like I feel like he would receive it the best, maybe.
Yeah, he's not an emotional kid and very even keeled with everything. And I've literally never seen, as an adult, I've never seen Logan cry. Like his baseline is perpetually happy, and he doesn't waver from that much at all.
Yeah.
And he told me later after this, like obviously we talk about this and stuff a fair amount, and he told me he never knew what sadness or depression felt like until Garrett passed. Like he had never like had like sadness really.
Yeah.
So I called, and Logan answered his phone, and I said, is Max there, and is your mom there? And I think as soon as I said that, at the time in the morning, like he immediately suspected. Because Garrett, the thing is too, you have to understand Garrett was a fearless kid who was somewhat reckless, and I take responsibility for that. He had a lot of my personality in that way, and that I think he was very much like, just to tell you a couple stories about Garrett, he got pulled over, not too long before this. I think it was less than a year, doing 127 miles an hour. And then you'd think, like, what was he doing? Was he street racing? Was he doing something crazy? No, he was on his way to work. Like and it was a highway, like open highway early in the morning, and he had a long drive to work, and there were no other cars around. But like, that was not like out of Garrett's personality. And we were just like, dude, you gotta take it easy. Like you can't keep doing these things. And then he was an iron worker, and he'd had a couple close calls at work. He told me about one day where he almost got pinched in between a beam. They were bringing in a big piece of iron, and the operator screwed something up, and the iron swung and almost crushed him between another girder. And, so they're like, so I don't know. We just always worried about Garrett, like just the way he was, the things he did. So there, I don't know, like it was just, and I don't want to say we had some feeling that he wouldn't live a long time, because I definitely didn't feel that way, but there was concern that he takes a lot of risks and does a lot of silly things, and that something could happen. And so anyway, so when I asked Logan if his brother and his mom were there, like he's like, did something happen with Garrett? And I said yes. And then he said, is Garrett okay? And I said no. And so then he got his mom and brother and put me on speaker, and I explained what happened. And most difficult call of my entire life. And but then they immediately all came to my house, which is about an hour away, and we spent the entire day together. But yeah, it was just such a difficult thing, right? Like the kind of things, and there's more details that I'm leaving out that really aren't necessary to share, but every moment of that is etched in my mind forever. Yeah. And, well, if you're still with us and not bawling your eyes out like I am, and even if you are, so let's, those are our stories. Let's shift into, how that's affected our lives. And then we'll talk more about like dealing with it and things we found to be helpful or not. And, but yeah, let's, for you, like, well, let's start with you about
Okay.
how your life changed post tragedy and like how that affected you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess for me, like experiencing, that like kind of loss as a kid, I think it really shifted my whole worldview. And I know at the time, like it was really tough to, I think I got a lot of fear. Obviously, I think when you see your sibling die, when you're young, you kind of just realize that you can die. And I think you realize that everyone can die around you. So, and I think when you're a kid, normally you don't really have that realization.
No, that's so different because most kids, like you often feel completely indestructible.
Invincible, right?
Yeah, and so that was something that was, I don't know if you want to say taken from you is the right word, but a realization you had much earlier in life than most people.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like, there's pros and cons, I suppose. Like a pro being like, yeah, you can kind of like appreciate life and you value your time with people. But yeah, I think it as a kid, it instills a lot of fear too. And I just remember having like really bad separation anxiety with my mom, and we had just also moved, and my parents also had just gotten divorced. So there's a lot of things going on in that regard. But yeah, I guess it just created a lot of fear, created a different view of the world. And that was kind of like the main thing that I noticed. And I mean, as much as I remember, like a lot of it, I was a kid, obviously for a lot of it. So I don't have like a great memory, and like maybe a lot of it's like repressed, like, I probably should dig into that a little bit too.
But definitely. Yeah, I think for sure. And like over many discussions, obviously we're very close friends, have known each other for a number of years. And, it obviously affected you, right? Like going forward and just your view on life
and fear of loss. Like I noticed as an adult, I have a huge fear of loss, whether that's tied to my job as well too. But like I have like a little bit of like unnecessary panic. So I don't hear from people, or I think that stuff's coming. And I think that's been ingrained in me since I was young. But it did make me more sensitive to other people's grief, or more, maybe not sensitive, because like you can see, I can like sit here and see you experiencing it. And it's not that it like, I don't feel it. Maybe I have like maybe also some like unhealthy coping mechanisms that are necessary at work, but maybe like less healthy like in real life. But but like I care a lot about how people feel, whether I'm expressing it or not. And then like I think it drew me to want to do my job, and kind of drew me to situations that involve emotional intensity and to be
Yeah, 100%. And then, like, when that happened with Garrett, you were one of the first people I told, and you came and spent, I think it was almost a full week with me, right? Like,
I think it was like 4 or 5 days for sure. Yeah,
and you were there for the funeral, and that like helped me immensely, like to have you there and stuff. That's I always appreciate that.
It was really important to me to like be there through that. So.
So that's maybe I don't know if you want to call it a skill, but something your experience helped you to be someone who's like really good with dealing with that stuff.
And I don't even know if good. It's just that I know that you got to be there, right? You got to show up. Like I think it's like one of the most important things you can do for the people that you care about, because it's one of those in those moments where you need people the most. And obviously with Garrett too. Like I knew Garrett and cared about Garrett a lot. Like. So
yeah, Garrett really, really liked you.
Yeah, I really liked, and I really admired him. Like I thought he was just one of the coolest, like, young people that I had met. Like, and I never really met such a young person that was so sure of himself. Like he was like unwaveringly himself, and like very, just like proud of it, owned who he was, very honest, very like he had so much authenticity. Like he was like. Yeah, just exactly himself, right? Like,
he certainly was. He had so much confidence and self-assuredness, and for a 22-year-old kid, he could walk into a room full of adults. We talked a lot about this afterwards, like twice his age, and he would be like control the room. Like people were drawn to him, and he was one of those. He was just kind of a natural leader. He, like I said, he was a fearless kid and just a lot of confidence. And completely owned who he was, and like he was someone that everybody noticed. Like when Garrett was around, and he was just a person that people were drawn to, and he was funny, and he was super charismatic, and a good-looking kid. Like it just girls were, Garrett was the one growing up out of my 3 sons. Like it seemed like every year he would rotate girlfriends, but like he just. you know, a lot of relationships, but a lot of stuff. Whenever I got a call, his mom's name's Patty, and whenever I got a call from Patty about like needing to talk to me right away, it was always about Garrett.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was, you know, getting into a fight at school or, you know, doing something crazy or, you know, and not anything, you know, super bad, but Garrett was just, he was, you know, an adventurous kid and wasn't afraid of things and, you know, but yeah, every single time was like, I need to talk to you. I'm like, okay, what Garrett do? And,
yeah, he liked to push the limits of things too. And he was so bold. I remember he was 18. He bought his first house.
Yeah,
that was
19,
cool.
yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, I remember like just being like, that's awesome. Like, good for you. Like,
yeah,
and he was fixing it up, right? And
yeah, totally renovating. His stepdad was helping him, and but yeah, bought an older home and completely renovated it, and then sold it, flipped it at 19 years old. And he was just a super motivated kid, very hardworking. You know, I remember some of his coaches telling me they were the hardest working kid they'd ever had. And it was really special too. Like afterwards, we got a letter from one of the kids that he, that was on the wrestling team that was a couple of years younger than Garrett. And he, you know, shared a story about how, you know, Garrett had left a huge impression on him as a leader and as an athlete.
Oh, wow, that's
and
really special.
Yeah. And, you know, but yeah, that, you know, Garrett was just someone that he looked up to and respected, and it helped him. I think it stood up for him sometimes and stuff like that. And I know there was a couple stories Garrett had told me about kids that had come to him that felt they could share things with him that they couldn't share with other people. And
well, he's really non-judgmental too, right?
Yeah. And I think too, like, yeah, from growing up with me as a parent,
yeah.
You know, I think that shaped his view on a lot of things too, right? So he was a very open-minded kid. But yeah, Garrett was a special kid, and I know everyone feels that way about their children. But
yeah, no, he really was. He was a really unique person. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are all very good memories. And
so, do you want to talk maybe a bit about how life feels for you post,
like how it changed things? Yeah. I was lucky, and I remember I would think about this all the time, like how far I'd made it in life without losing anyone really close to me. You know, I was 49 years old when Garrett passed, and I had lost my dad 9 months before that, and that was like the first. I mean, I'd lost my grandfather before that, but that again, it's like more natural, order of things, right?
It's really
like
different. Yeah.
When somebody's in their 80s or 90s, it's very different. And even though, like, don't get me wrong, I love my grandparents very dearly, but them passing, it wasn't traumatizing.
Yeah, and like outside of trying to control the nature of reality, you can't stop that kind of thing, right? Where when people die in an untimely way, there's all these what ifs, there's all these,
Yeah, it reminds you of the fragility of life, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it does really, like, bring that to the forefront. And like with my dad, even though, that was a little premature, with the COPD and the lung cancer, we knew it was coming. Like he was his condition was deteriorating for several years, and to the point, and at the end he was suffering. I remember my dad texted me the night before and basically said, like, he's tired of suffering, and basically he's ready for it to end. And then basically the COPD basically caused him to have a heart attack the next morning. And he had called 911 because he was having a lot of trouble breathing and chest pain. And then they showed up and he coded right there with them there. And they weren't able to save him, which honestly for my dad was a good thing because it would just prolong his suffering.
100%. Yeah.
And, yeah, and going up to see, that was another thing too, like how things stick with you and how people react differently. So that happened up north. My dad lived like 2 hours north of here, like near where we grew up at. And I got a call from the hospital they had taken him to, and do we want to come see him and this and that. And me and my youngest brother both went. And somebody at the hospital dropped the ball on this one. And, it didn't bother me at all, but it definitely bothered my little brother. But they wheeled my dad out in a body bag, and
oh my god,
yeah,
like
and,
I just can't with some people. Like, who made that decision?
I don't know. And like I said, this didn't bother me at all. Like, but then so they wheel him out on a gurney in a body bag,
like zipped up or
zipped up.
Oh my god,
and I could laugh about this part, like, but for anyone who's listening, and this may seem like really cold, but in light of me just bawling my eyes out for the last 15 minutes or whatever, but anyone who is a fan of the band Megadeth, and there's an album with an old guy on the cover, and literally when they unzipped my dad, that was the first thought that went through my head. It looked just like the guy on this cover of the metal album because he had been intubated, and so his head was arched up and back, and his mouth was still open, and that's
I really think like okay, so. Not to interject in your terribly inappropriate story, but I've like been on obviously many calls where people have died and we've done CPR on them and stuff, and I've been on calls where like some medics will just leave like the patient with like their eyes open and their mouth open, like looking really scary and stuff. And that's actually something like one of the ways.
It's one of those images that sticks in your mind, right?
It does, right? And it's horrible. So like that's something I actually am really conscious of when I try to make sure like if I'm there and able to while we're leaving a person to make them look presentable. Like I'm like you're leaving like all this medical equipment spread out on the like you're leaving like
Garrett's
and usually
room was like that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
I had to clean up a bunch of stuff after they left.
I always go around and clean up with a garbage bag. It's like the family shouldn't have to like be reliving that horrible trauma. And like also like I remember the specific call, like again this is like obviously I never share like details of where and whatever, but I remember this one call we were at, and it was like a Christmas morning, and the dad had died. Like we've been doing CPR on the dad, and obviously he died, he didn't make it, and the kids were still upstairs, they hadn't woken up yet. It was Christmas morning, and the dad was like had just died, and it was like that same thing. The medics, they leave, and the dad was like, his eyes were open, his tongue was like, I'm like, this is just there's like not thinking, right? Like how this is and
gonna
I think
affect,
maybe when you haven't been through it, I think like coming back to how my
maybe
own
you don't
kind
even
of grief. It has benefited me in that way. Is like I'm thinking about that stuff. I'm like, oh my god, like you can't leave this, like so. Yeah, so maybe I like that person in the hospital clearly, and you run. The thing is in hospital and like even firefighters, like you run all these calls and they become very routine.
Yeah, and when you're not connected to the person, like it's easier to be detached.
And you kind of do have to detach a little bit. You cannot feel the weight of every single call you go to. Right. It'll wreck you, right?
Yeah.
When you start doing that, you start running into a lot of problems, and but it's like. But you still don't want to be so cold that you're not like. There's a difference.
You can't be so insensitive.
Yeah, it's kind of a happy medium. And
so when they brought my dad out like that, and they unzipped the body bag, and the guy asked, he's like, "Do you want a few minutes alone with him?" Yeah. And we were like, "Yeah." And then they unzip it, and my dad's head pops out, and he looks that way, and then Chris goes, "I'm good," and then walks away. Yeah. And then I was like, I'm gonna take some time alone with him. But like Chris told me later, he's like, yeah, that really freaked him out.
Well, no kidding, yeah. And, especially someone like, I don't know what Chris does for work, but he probably hasn't seen.
Yeah, he definitely hasn't seen a lot of things that like I have for sure.
And it's always different when it's your own family too. Like it's a different thing.
100%. And when it's new, like we hadn't, my dad was the first one close to us to pass.
That's true, yeah.
And like I said, I'm, obviously Garrett is completely different for me. Like my children are the one thing that would, obviously deeply affects me. But I'm, like I said, I'm someone who, my mom is still here, fortunately, but like, and I know, when she passes on, and don't get me wrong, I love her to death and it'll be hard, but I'm someone that it's not going to affect anywhere near, like won't be anywhere near as traumatic as like with Garrett and with my dad. And don't get me wrong, like I loved my dad and we had our difficulties at times. And, but yeah, I spent like 15 minutes with him and stuff. And even though like, that image, like me seeing him, I remember it very clearly, but like I said, I'm able to frame it in a way that I kind of chuckle at it. Like I said, the Megadeth album,
right.
But yeah, I always said like it was one thing like when we talk, anytime when we bring up the subject of having children, especially they didn't have them, you'd hear me go on and on about how it's the best thing in life, like by far, and who knows for whatever reason, but I always would say like the only downside, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, the only downside to having kids, and like, people, there's lots of things, like people will be like, yeah, kids are expensive and it's a lot of time responsibility. But for me, the only downside, and I can say this with 100% honesty, was the fear of losing them. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like every single moment with my boys is a good one. I can honestly say every single day of their lives that I get to spend with them It was a great day. And
yeah. And they do, that's kind of what they say, right? Like grief and love are different sides of the same coin. And it's like, and you do, it's,
the more you love, the harder you grieve, right?
and it's sort of like, I struggle with this a lot, is accepting that to love means that you're going to grieve. And you know, maybe not, when you're a parent, I think that's where it's like so out of order too, because I don't think you expect to ever have to grieve them. But you know, you do ultimately lose each other when you die either way, right? And that's just what loving and living, you know, involves, and it's really
it is. It's like, and that's the downside of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the more you love, the harder it is to to lose. And but I think, like, you know, getting back to talking about life, you know, post tragedy, it's hard because there's so many, like, especially the closer you are to the person, the more reminders there are, right?
Yeah, and he was living with you, and
he lived with me. Like, his room is right across the hall from mine, and you know, at this point, I've still left everything the same, even though his brothers and sometimes, well, you've stayed in his room or whatever. Mm-hmm. But and then, you know, like all his things. Every time I hear a song on the radio, that's what's been so hard, and it's weird. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? Because all these things remind me of him, which remind me of his loss, and are painful. But at the same time, I want to remember these things. I don't want to forget them.
I will. You're never going to forget him.
No, that's not possible.
No.
But like, and like some of the little things like I do day to day is, fortunately, I'm someone who takes lots of pictures and lots of video, and the boys would always give me a hard time about, do you got to film this? Do you got to film that? And when we're doing things, and I'm like, like this will mean a lot when you guys are older, you know. Mm-hmm. And but I'm so thankful to have all those videos. And for me, like watching those, like, you know, I can smile and I can laugh, and it helps. Like that helps me more than anything. Like getting to hear his voice, and see him a little bit, And
videos are really special.
Yeah. So for me, those are huge, and I'm so thankful to have those. And I have like silly stuff, like 20 minutes of us, you know, playing Jenga. And,
but that's like the simple stuff that you really want to remember, right? It's like a regular. It's like the. How do you feel about like?
Excuse me, sorry.
I know I've heard some people say like it's the regular day-to-day things that you miss the most.
Yeah.
How would you agree with that?
Everything. I mean, but like just his presence, his personality, the way, like people that knew us and saw Garrett and I together, we had a very, like always a very good back and forth, right? Like Garrett me and my sons joke that like their personalities are like if you took me and split me in thirds.
Totally.
And you know all of them very well. And
they're so cool. It's so interesting how they're like that.
Yeah, like how genetics work and stuff. And then with Garrett, like he was definitely my more outgoing and social and charismatic side, right? And but him and I had very similar personalities that way, and we just talk crap to each other nonstop, like in a very fun, playful way. And like everything we did, like it was impossible for me to be with him and not have a good time. Like we, you know, just constantly like so many inside jokes and so many things. So it's like, it's really like just listening. And he was the same way with his brothers too. And you know, like watching those videos of us just playing, because Garrett loved to play games, right? Like board games and stuff. And so I have all these videos of us playing board games together and stuff like that. And at the time the boys were like, "Why are you recording this?" But I'm so thankful that I did. And and it's just, like.
You've been like having some dreams and stuff about him too, and does that feel similar to watching the videos?
It's like one of those things too, like, right? So I like that I have a lot of dreams about him, and sometimes the dreams are painful. I've had a couple dreams that I guess I'll share that are very difficult. There was one, and this was near like after his death. This was within a couple weeks. And it was one of the most realistic dreams I've ever had. And I'm someone who dreams first person mostly, and I've my dreams tend to be very vivid, and I often remember them very well. My sleep is very restless. I wake up a lot, so I wake up during a lot of my dreams. I think that's why I remember so many of them and remember so much detail about them. But I had a dream right away where I was somehow able to go back in time, and I knew, and it felt so real. It felt so real. And my goal in the dream was to, find Garrett, warn him about what was going to happen. And in the dream, he was like 8, right? So then I find him and I hug him super tight. And sorry. Excuse me, sorry. And but I grab him and hold him and squeeze him and I remember he looked at me confused. We always, hugged each other a ton, me and all my boys. And, but I think there was something in the hug, like in the dream that, felt like so, urgent and important. And like it made him like kind of look at me like,
like what's wrong?
Like why? Yeah. Like this felt like a really special hug. Like why?
Yeah.
He kind of like, pulled back and looked at me, and then I'm searching through my brain, and somehow like I knew in the dream, like I had a very limited amount of time.
Yeah.
Before I got pulled back to the future. It's crazy how dreams work sometimes. And so then I'm like scrambling to find the words. Like, how do I tell him? Like, what's going to happen and how to prevent this? And then right as I'm trying to communicate to him, I get pulled back. And so that was a tough one. And but I'm glad when I have dreams like that. Even in the dreams, he's all different ages and different points in his life, but every one of them makes it feel like I got to see him for a little bit, right? And but yeah, another one recently, same kind of thing. Like he was alive again, and he was older this time, probably 20-ish, 21, close to like I said, he was 22 when he passed, and it always feels like so real, and like you feel like, and in my dream I'm conscious of what happened, but like it's somehow like I know he's back, and then in this dream he died a different way, and so I lost him again, and they're tough, and not all the dreams are like that. Like some of the dreams are just us doing normal stuff together or whatever, or goofy in the way the dreams are goofy. But I'm thankful for every one of them. Like it's like watching a video or getting to spend a little time with them. Yeah. It's like 3 years later, I still dream about him constantly, and which is a good thing. But yeah, there's definitely an element of it, and I don't know like if most people feel this way that have had a loss like this, but it feels like surreal. Like there's an element of it still doesn't feel real. Like someday you're waking, you're waiting to wake up and have it all been a dream.
Yeah. I even feel like that with the loss of my friend recently, where I'm just like, just feels like I haven't seen him for a long time sometimes. And then out of the blue, it'll hit you like, you're never seeing him again, And it's like, I think it's just,
That's one of the most difficult, the finality, right? Like that's it. Like, yeah, I remember one thing Logan said like several months after Garrett's death was just really matter of factly, like it's hard for him to believe that Garrett doesn't exist anymore. And
that's a really hard way to put it for sure.
Yeah. And but yeah, there is an element of it being surreal, and
I can relate to that.
But then like I think it's important to share with people too that even though like I've been sharing a lot of really tough stuff and like how hard this has been, but I'm still able to enjoy all the same things I've always enjoyed. Like I went back to jiu-jitsu practice right away. I competed at Pans and Worlds like several months later and did well. And but like interspersed in there is the grief and the sadness, like and there's so much stuff that if you're around someone who's been through something like this, there's so much of it that's not visible, right?
Yeah.
Like I would be at practice and, my coaches would play music when we're warming up and stuff, and one of Garrett's favorite songs or something would come on, and you just, try to hold that inside because you don't want to. And that's a big element of it too, not wanting to make people around you uncomfortable.
Right. And I think too, another part is like not necessarily wanting to dive into those big grief feelings at that time either, right? I don't know if that's how you feel, but I know for me sometimes it's like you're just like, I don't want to do this today. I just want to not think about this today. And I don't know if it's the same because maybe you're struggling to even.
Yeah, I think with me a lot of it is like at bedtime when I lay down at night, like, and then that's when my brain really like is hard to turn off, and I don't want to dwell on it, and I don't want to like, every night, like the fan that I turn on every night that's close to my bed. I bought that right around the same time Garrett passed. So it was like every time I turn that darn thing on, I think about that.
Yeah.
And and just little things he liked, and all kinds of stuff. But then, like I said, the reminders they're not necessarily bad things, but and it's like there's this element of sometimes it's painful. Like I walk in his room and look at his things, but at the same time, you don't want to forget. And I think there's this element of like to not do those things almost feels like betraying him, something like that.
Yeah, and I can see how you feel that way. I think ultimately, like Garrett isn't somebody that would feel that way though. Like he's like, I think he would feel sad to think that you feel.
For sure. Yeah, Garrett wouldn't want that for sure. And he's someone too that would never blame anything else.
No, like he's very accountable, very much owned everything good or bad, or any mistakes he made. He would 100% own that. Like he would never blame anything on anyone else. And but he would definitely not want like me to be sad and stuff, obviously, but or feeling like you're betraying him. I just don't think you would feel that, but I totally see how. I think that's probably something that's very common for people to feel because it's like this battle between wanting to not feel deep sadness, but not wanting to forget them or feel like you're moving on, which obviously you're never going to forget them, but not wanting. It's like almost like letting go of that sadness is like you feel like you're letting go of that person, which you're not. But I totally hear you.
No, not at all. And so do we want to talk about like some of the ways that we have found that are helpful, or just like how to move forward with grief, and then like some analogies? I know we both have analogies we use that we feel kind of like accurately conveys how we feel, and then I think for a lot of people that might be the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the one that I like heard, and I don't remember where I heard it, but it's like I think it's a pretty good way to describe grief that I think we'll see if whoever's listening can relate, but it's that ball in the box theory, if you've heard it. So basically what it is there's like, if you just can visualize, like if for those of you just listening and not watching, like you visualize a ball and like a square around the ball. And at first, the ball is the grief. And so at first it's pressed right up against the corners of the box. And so the box represents when you feel it. And so as time goes on, the box gets a little bit wider and a little bit wider, and so that ball's moving around inside the box, and every time it touches a side, that's when you're experiencing and feeling the grief. And so it's very frequent at first, very, very frequent, and then just over time the box grows and the grief stays the same. Like you still feel it when you feel it, but it's just touching the sides less often. So eventually over time, I don't know if there's like a set size that the box gets to or whatever it is, but it's not that the grief goes and shrinks, it's just that you feel it less frequently, I guess. So
and there's probably times maybe the box shrinks a little bit again.
Yeah,
or
true.
grows,
it's not linear. I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, and then sometimes the box tightens up a little bit, and sometimes, for me, the analogy that I have found most accurate is that it's like a backpack full of rocks, and it's like. So for me, it feels like I'm wearing a backpack with like 100 pounds of rocks or something in it, and I carry it with me everywhere I go.
Right.
And it's not, the backpack never gets lighter. You just get stronger. But it definitely, for me, that feels like a very accurate analogy that that weight is always there, always there. And it's just forever changed. How I'll view life and how I feel. And for me, I'm someone who's naturally happy and optimistic. Like I've always like Logan's a lot like me that way, that, you just wake up like every day's a good day. And not that, trust me, not that I don't have struggles. There haven't been tough times, because I've certainly been through plenty of them. Yeah. Garrett being by far the most traumatic and most difficult. But I'm still like, I'm an eternal optimist, and my baseline disposition is one of happiness. And I could always, honestly, no matter what happened in my life, like even when I went through cancer and even dealing with all this about me being trans, which was very, very difficult and, you know, really like depressed me at times. But like, I could honestly say like, you know, life is good in the big scope of things overall. Like I'm still, there's always something, like life was always still a good thing. And with Garrett passing, like sometimes I don't know if I can say that anymore. And that's like the biggest change. Yeah. And then, but for me, like, yeah, the backpack analogy is the most accurate one, that it's just a weight that's always present. And, you know, like I said, you get stronger, you get better at carrying it, but that weight is always there. Yeah. And then, and there's another analogy I've heard, like where grief comes in waves, and it's very kind of similar to the box analogy, and that sometimes there's a bunch of waves, and sometimes there's a few big waves, sometimes it's a lot of little waves. And I know like the last couple of years, the time between his birthday in May 15th and the anniversary of his death on August 1st, that's been an especially difficult time. Like it just, the first year that I faced that, like it was like right back to like how I felt like in the days afterwards. And then last year was the same way too. Like, and then it continued even longer though, past the anniversary of his death, and all through the fall for like 6 months last year. It felt like just as fresh as like in the first few weeks, and it was really rough. And like I said, it's a hard thing. And like, and this is one of the reasons why I want to share all of this, because the people around me don't know, you know, like like if you knew me, I still seem like this very happy, like, and don't get me wrong, I am in a lot of ways. But like, yeah, like
they don't see the backpack.
No, they don't. Exactly. They can't see the backpack. And like, I can be in the middle of jiu-jitsu practice, like I said, and you know, Garrett's favorite song comes on or whatever, and then right away that just takes me there, right? And then and there were times like I went to, so 2 weeks after Garrett's death, we had planned like me and a bunch of my teammates had planned this team trip to Las Vegas for the ADCC championships, which for those that aren't familiar with jiu-jitsu, that's like the Olympics of grappling, and it was a big deal. And you know, and it was only 2 weeks after, but I wanted to still go, and I thought it would be good for me to not like, because it was so hard to like not just think about everything constantly, right? So like, I'm gonna go to something I really enjoy. I'm gonna be around a bunch of my friends, and I was able to enjoy it, but what people didn't know or didn't realize, I was ducking out like, you know, every half an hour or whatever it was during it. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. I wasn't going to the bathroom. I was going in there and bawling my eyes out. Yeah. And so that's like, that became like my kind of, I don't know, it's not really a coping mechanism, but like, that's how I could still like insert myself into normal things. And when I needed to step away, that's what I would do. Oh, I got to run to the bathroom, and then, you know, cry it out for a little while. And then when I was done, go back. And I didn't say anything, because what do you say?
What are you supposed to say? Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't want to talk about it nonstop. Like, even though it's in my mind, like, you don't want to drag everybody else down around you. And so you don't want to, I guess the whole point of this is, if you know someone's been through this, you know, you can't just assume that they're not suffering or be like,
I think you can almost assume they are.
Yeah, that's definitely the default for sure. And it's just like but just because someone maybe isn't showing it, and some people are just very stoic in nature. I'm not, like, right. You know, I can be at times, but like for the most part, I'm a very like kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve type person. And you know, extreme emotions are difficult for me to, you know, to keep below the surface, but like I often do, just because, like I said, you feel this need to not drag everyone else down around you. And then it just also too, what's the point of, you know, rehashing it over and over and over again? The pain's still going to be there. The loss still happened. Nothing's going to change that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a point to reaching out and connecting. I do think it's not that it makes anything better. Obviously it doesn't, but I think that there's some comfort in just being like, I don't know, witness through your grief, or just like having that be shared, right? Like, and I think that
definitely sharing the load kind of thing.
Just being there with someone while they're experiencing grief, you know. And I think it's like important to, that's why it is, because you do feel, I think, like you don't want to burden people with that, but that's why it's so important, if they're like, if you care about somebody that's grieving, to keep checking in. And even if they're not replying, or they're not, you know, like they can set the tone, but in fact, they probably should set the tone, because maybe they do want the space or whatever, but I think to just know that you have people that care, it does make a difference, right?
It makes a huge difference. Yeah. Like, obviously, like a couple of my other close friends from, you know, jiu-jitsu came and spent, came over and brought dinner over like the day after it happened and spent that night with me. And that really helped, just having them there. And then obviously you came and spent a bunch of time with me, and that was huge. That helped so much. That was really big. And I think so let's,
do you have anything else that you want to say about what, things that have helped, or things that like ways that you found that dealing with it? So I guess we talked about, we were just talking about connecting with others and like sharing that load.
Let's also talk about like, I don't think we can really call them positives, but maybe lessons learned in like, like for me, I know, it puts things in perspective, right? Like it helped me, like the thing is, no matter what happens in my life now, everything else is small potatoes. Like I can go through something really, really difficult, like in comparison to losing Garrett, it's nothing. It's nothing. So it does like put in perspective what's really important and stuff that we maybe tend to really stress about in life or think's a big deal. Like, like, let's say I was going to, go bankrupt or like lose everything. Would that suck? Of course. But like in comparison to what happened with Garrett, it's nothing. Like whatever. Okay, start over.
It's just stuff, right?
So you realize like it does put things in a perspective in a way that when you've been through something like that, everything else is the volume on it or the intensity of it. Like you're just like, that's not that big a deal.
I think grief really like opens your heart to what's real and what matters in life.
And I would say some other things too is like the fragility of life. And we both mentioned that already, but putting in perspective, like, that we don't know how long we have, and to make the most, like you've mentioned before, in living in the moment and, making the most of that, because you don't know. Yesterday already happened, tomorrow's not promised, and we really don't know. So it does make you appreciate like every moment, I think, a little bit more, knowing that none of us know when the end is coming. And then one thing I actually like had to say about something that helps is actually something my therapist said to me not too long ago when I was asking her about how she's somebody that's dealt with a lot of grief in her life. And I asked her how she dealt with it, because it just seemed like she dealt with loss after loss. And she was just saying, she's like, I found it was when she found a way to sort of honor that person's spirit. And I think how she phrased it was that it was like, what did I learn from that specific person? Like, what did their energy, what did their personality teach me? Like, what was the impression they left on me? And how can I like embody that in this world, in this life? And she was saying, when she found a way to do that with each person she lost, that's sort of what really helped her sort of feel, I don't know, it doesn't help, like as in obviously nothing can bring them back, but like, you feel less like I think you're losing them when you're able to contribute, it's a way to help their
contribute to the world,
their spirit live on kind of
in the way that they would really have done if they were here, right? Or would have wanted to do if they were like, embodying that sense of themselves. So that was something I found. I found that like to be empowering when she said that. I was like, okay, that's true, and that's something I could see like feeling really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think let's talk about, like, I know before this happened to me, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, like I had no idea how to reach out to someone who'd been through a tragedy, and I was so afraid of doing the wrong thing that I did nothing. And that's, I think, not that it's the worst, but like it definitely, like we talked about this before we went on air, but like one of the most important things you can do, or maybe the most important thing, is just to let the person know you're there, and that you recognize their suffering, and this is going to be obviously individualized based on how close you are to the person, what they're like, what they need. Some people, they're going to want you to be present. Some people are going to want time alone. Someone close to you, you're going to hug and hold, and you're not going to do that with like a coworker maybe, but you might. I think the biggest thing is just reaching out, like for anyone who hasn't been through anything like that and felt like I did, like has no idea how to deal with this when someone goes through something like this. I'd say the most important things are just, number one, reach out and let them know that you're thinking about them and you care. And if you're comfortable with it, if they want to talk, that you're there for them, or, or if they want to spend time together or whatever. Like I said, that's going to change a lot depending on who the person is and how close you are to them. But
Yeah.
I think that's probably the single best thing to do.
And I think the other thing is like, just, you don't have to do anything perfectly. Like, you're not going to. Like, I think feeling awkward about it and being like, oh, I don't know what to say is like a big part. And even like someone like me who like, I've known since a young age that it's important to reach out and to show up for people in those times, but I still feel uncomfortable when I do, depending on the person, and even when it's somebody I'm close to. Like, it's hard. It's really hard to sit with someone while they're in that much pain. It's hard to hold that space, right? It's not necessarily comfortable, but it's it's meaningful. And then after you've done that, you feel like, at least for me, I feel proud's the wrong word, but it's like connected to like where I'm meant to be, if that makes sense. It's like it feels like it's like a good place to be, not like in the
valuable
sense
thing to
yes
do.
Yeah, like you're, I don't know how to phrase it,
meaningful,
but maybe just a very meaningful thing. Yeah.
Like I said, I can't emphasize enough how much like you and some of my other friends being present for me, like, yeah, those are things you'll never forget.
Yeah, it's true, right? Like you remember so deeply the people that show up for you. Like, that's, I feel like, what friendship is about. What, like, and the definition of compassion, or like not the definition, but like the root word of it, I believe, maybe don't quote me, I don't know if this is direct, but I think it means suffer with, which is pretty cool, because that's all you can really do. You can't take it away, and I experienced this too, like 2 years ago when I had first met my partner. Like, her mom died within 3 weeks of us dating.
I remember that.
And like, at least, and you'd have to ask her if this was helpful, but it was like, it's like, for the approach I took was just to be with her through it and not try to change what she's feeling, not try to solve it, because you can't, but just to hold space for like literally whatever they need through that. Yeah. And I think that's really all you can do.
Yeah, I think, acknowledging their grief and, being there for them if they need you. I think those are the big things, right? And that's something I was so, like, I was at a loss. I didn't know what to do, because, and like I said, unfortunately, when I'd had a couple friends go through stuff, like, I failed to reach out because I was so afraid of doing the wrong thing.
And
so,
I
like,
think that's the point, is there isn't really a wrong thing, right?
No.
And I think it means, even if somebody says something that you like stupid or whatever to you, you're still like, okay, like, this person cares,
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. Like, I know I definitely did not judge anyone and I appreciated every single person that reached out to me. And sometimes it was people I was surprised that, like, maybe I didn't think, I was that close to or whatever. But it meant a lot. Like, every single person that came to the funeral, everyone who sent cards or even just reached out in any way.
Yeah.
Like, it all meant a lot. So, yeah. So, so I think, like, if we have a recommendation as two people who've been through a lot, acknowledging someone's grief and being present for them if they need you, I think those are the best things that you can do. So is there anything else we want to talk about or
I think
go
that's
over
all
before
I
we
got.
wrap this one up?
Yeah.
This has been obviously, like, probably the most difficult episode we'll ever do. And I hope, people found value in this. It maybe answered some questions for people, maybe offered some connection for other people. And
we'd love to hear, like, comments in the comment section about, if anyone wants to share their own experiences with grief and have discussions on that, like, that would be a really cool, good use of the comments.
And in the future, if it's something that maybe there's enough people interested in, and even doing, like, some type of, I don't know, seminar or group meetings or whatever.
And sharing your own experiences of things that have helped. I think that would be another really great thing.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's lots of other ways to help that we aren't aware of or never have been exposed to or thought about. But yeah, like I said, I just hope this episode spoke to the people who needed it to speak to them, and educated the people who needed to be educated, and people found it to be of value, and because that was really our purpose in doing this and being like, and I think people recognize, like, especially for me, Olivia just is so strong, but
it's not a strength thing. I think it's just It's just a different way. And like I said in the beginning, your grief is really fresh. And very significant. And I think like, not that mine's not significant, but it was so long ago. I've been, processing or maybe repressing for years, right? And again, my job is one that I need to hold space for people when they're grieving and not be reactive. So that's something I have. Like I tend to. I don't know if it's a skill, because sometimes it's like sometimes I realize it's like almost like a deferral where like I experience grief later on on my own versus in the moment. But like I do, because it's not like I'm not somebody that can't, like I do cry, I get emotional at movies and things like that. But I think I find when it's like serious, it's sort of just, whew. But that's just me. And I'm, like I said before, I'm in therapy. So hopefully that can maybe shift a little bit if it's unhealthy. I don't know.
There's one last point that actually you mentioning therapy just reminded me of, that I do therapy as well. It's something I did on and off through the years because I had to as part of being trans in our journey and getting access to certain things. But I never really found it that helpful until like I found my most recent therapist, and now I do weekly therapy as just a form of self-improvement. And I found it really helpful. And then one of the things, like I was seeing her when this happened, and she's been through a lot of loss as well. And the best piece of advice she had for me, because this was something I had never really considered, was that you need to experience it. Like you can't, like for me, everything in my life, I had, my approach to everything was analyze it, process it, and move on. There's no point on dwelling on like, hard things or tough things. And that's how I felt about being trans. And last of like, okay, well, what do I need to do? How do I deal with this? What's my next step? And with grief like this, it isn't that way. You don't just process it and move on. And part of the process of, of healing is sitting with it. And I had never even considered that. Like I never, like it felt like, okay, well, you just can't, what are you gonna do? Sit here and cry the rest of your life? I didn't see the value in it. But now I recognize like that you have to feel those emotions and you have to let them run their course. And that was something that was very valuable for me because I never had ever really even considered that before that. So
interesting. There's a lot of like research and stuff out now about that your body can store trauma that doesn't get expressed, and grief or whatever that doesn't get expressed. I think it's like a very important thing for sure.
It's not going anywhere if you don't deal with it. And I think so many, especially men in our culture, have been taught to like bury things deep down and not, be stoic all the time. And I don't know if people heard that in the background. Hopefully
we'll
not.
Bleep that out.
And so it is important. If there's one more thing last thing to share is that like sometimes it's you just need to sit with those feelings, experience them, as painful as they are, as hard as it is. Part of the healing process is allowing those emotions to flow.
Yeah, that's good advice. Okay. Well, why don't we end it there then?
All right. Well, thanks everyone. We really appreciate you joining us today. And like I said, I hope you found it valuable and meaningful. And I didn't, if there's dry eyes out there, I hope that, like I said, it was worth your time. But everyone out there, take care. For anyone who's been through anything like this, I feel for you. And you do get stronger. Yep. So.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.
See you
Thanks
next
for
time.
listening.
Yep.